how do you beat this deep, like, emotional belief that you are unworthy, which is a very powerful thing, right? So it can fuck up your whole life.
It's a myth. It's a story that a child wrote because a child doesn't have a very sophisticated understanding of interpersonal emotional dynamics, particularly of his parents. So this is the best that I could do when I was 6 years old. But it's not the best I can do now. Now I can write a different story.
What's up, people? Today we're going to talk about the Nice Guy Syndrome, something I struggled myself with for most of my life. So, especially when it came to women, I was very afraid to rock the boat, to assert myself in the presence of other people, and to show any kind of sexuality in my life. I think this is a social problem today, especially in our post-feministic world and after radical feministic movements in the last couple of decades. I have a very educated guest today, and I hope we can give you some insights on the problems that face nice guys every day. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, comment below, and have fun.
Today we have a very special guest, and I've been looking forward to this interview for a week or so now. We're here with Dr. Michael Pedestal. He's an American psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, and also published author of the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, The Hero's Journey. And I think it's a spin-off of Dr. Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. I have to be honest, I actually didn't read all of the book, The Hero's Journey, because I'm just broke as fuck right now. So I didn't really could afford another book. But I've seen most of your YouTube interviews, and I'm absolutely aware of the Nice Guy Syndrome because I'm one myself, recovering nice guy. So yeah, welcome, Dr. Michael Pedestal.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. And just to kind of explain a bit, it's not exactly a spin-off.
Okay.
What happened was, and I don't know if you caught this in any of the interviews, but Robert Glover became a friend of mine. I'm a recovering nice guy, and I read his book, which helped me to see that I was a recovering nice guy. And so then I went up to Seattle, Washington, where he was living and working at the time, and I did a workshop with him, and we became friends. And we did a few workshops together in Los Angeles, and he would come through LA. When he ever came through LA, he would stay with me. I used to live on a boat, and he would stay on the boat. He likes the boat. So we would have dinners, and we would talk. And one of the things that was happening was that I was starting to treat more and more nice guys. They would come to me, he would refer them, or they would find their way to me. And I was doing monthly workshops, and with all the work I was doing, I was noticing one common theme, which was people would read his book and they go, "Oh my God, this is me." He's like, one guy said, it must be like he was following me around and taking notes. He just really nailed the syndrome, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of guys would say to me, so like, what do I do? And I would say, well, there's these exercises in the book. And they would say, well, I tried and it didn't really work, or it wasn't. So I said to Robert one day, I said, Robert, you have to write a workbook to go along with your book. And he said, I don't want to. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll write it with you. And he said, I don't want to. You write it. And so that's how it started. I started just putting together a workbook for his book. But when I did, I couldn't help it. I put a little bit of me in. And when he read the first kind of rough pieces of what I was writing, he said, that's really good. And you should put in more of like your own stuff and the hero's journey, which came from Joseph Campbell. And I said, okay. And little by little, it sort of developed into a kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
It's got his ideas. It's got a little structure from Joseph Campbell, and it's got a lot of examples from my own work and my own life.
Yes. Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I will absolutely read the book as well if I'm getting some more financial stability. But yeah, I can absolutely relate. Like Norman, Mr. Nice.
Arthur, I'm going to send you one for free.
Thanks. Then I will definitely read it.
Okay. And I just want you to know it's not a reading book. You could go through and read pieces, but it's a working book.
So you have to do like exercises and things like that.
Yes, it's exercises from beginning to end, and it's designed to help nice guys get from where they are to where they want to be.
Okay, all right. No, that's great because I can remember when I first read Norman Mr. Nice Guy, just as you said, I read a lot of self-help material, but this book, I read it in one day and I was like, what the hell is going on? It's like he's really speaking to my mind. And so it kind of has this touch to it. But what I wanted to ask you is, because, I could realize in myself, I'm like more of just like low energy male who doesn't like conflict and who like sacrifices what he wants in order to make everybody happy, right? So don't like to rock the boat. And if somebody's angry, I'll be like, okay, fuck, I have to stop making this person angry, even though it's just an emotion. You have zero control over how people react to you, right? And I figured out that I think I'd have some childhood issues probably because my parents, even though I really loved them, they were quite stressed when I was a kid, and they used to be like really exploding and violent for some part too. So I guess that's probably why I ended up in this nice guy situation where you try to please everybody, to calm everybody down so you survive, right? So I think that's where this comes from this like childhood survival mechanisms. But what about your nice guy background? So like what, because in one interview I heard you saying you can be an asshole or something, right? So which is kind of like the opposite of the nice guy. So where, in which position did you find yourself, and which character traits did you have where you said, okay, this like this classical nice guy type?
Well, that's a good question. And I came from a background with a very critical and angry mother. And so there was a lot of screaming as well. And I didn't do well with anger at all when somebody else got angry. But somewhere around the age of 12, 13, 14, I started becoming oppositional. Okay. And so there are nice guys and not so nice guys. And so I'm a not so nice guy because the oppositionality would, enabled me to flip the script around where I was the bully. Mm-hmm. And so, but I went back and forth, and neither one of those works, being either passive or aggressive or passive aggressive. Mm-hmm. And what I've tried to develop over time is the third way, which is assertiveness, which honors other people and your own desires. And you kind of stand in the vulnerability of what you want and how you feel. And that changes everything. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah. Actually, I think I came from a similar place because I was like more of a good, nice guy, but I had like breakouts where I got like violent, went into like fist fights or something, and had like aggression, which is probably, you get all the resentment that you bury down and then you blow up and kind of like total asshole and do that. And so I can understand. Um, the next question is, why did you call, but because this is actually what grabbed my attention. Why did you call it the hero's journey? Because I just know the myth. So I haven't read Campbell's book, but I know the human myth, that like the hero is born under the worst circumstances and then goes out to like slay a dragon or something and comes back with gold, or a woman, like he saved the virgin from the dragon, right? That's like the hero myth. And yeah, he has to confront something. He's like, that's terribly dangerous, and then comes back with something valuable. So was this like the background of the title, or why did you call it the hero's journey?
It has to do with the myth that you're talking about. But Campbell, when he wrote his book, which was, I think, in 1949, what he did was he read lots and lots and lots of myths and fables, Roman and Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Icelandic mythology, fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales. And also, he read a lot of the religions, the texts of the religions, the major religions of the world. And he also read both Freudian and Jungian psychoanalytic theory.
Okay.
And what he noticed was that all of the stories basically followed the pattern of human psychological growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that it wasn't that we are necessarily modeling ourselves on some myth. It's that the myths are modeled on us. So if you are somebody who kind of wants to step out of the kind of childhood prison that you're in and expand and grow, that's your own myth. That's your own hero's journey. And so you have to go out, and the dragons you slay and the woman that you bring back or the damsel you save is you.
Sure.
You're the one who is trapped in the tower. You are the one who is threatened with a kind of eternal aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are the one, and the tower and the dragons are constructed of your own personal psychological and emotional problems. And so you have to go out and wrestle with them and break free from them so that you can be the kind of person that you want to be.
Yeah,
and
sure.
that's the real hero. That's the integrated man.
Okay. Yeah, actually, today I was like, because like the dragon for me, it represents kind of like a fear, right? And so that's also, you don't only read that in Dr. Glover's book, but a lot of psychological research is like, okay, if it frightens you, you should probably do it because you kind of have this, behavioral cognitive therapy or something, I think is it called. However, today I had a huge fear actually because I called the ex-wife of my stepfather on the phone, and I told her that I'm really ashamed, but when I looked at her picture on the internet, I had like a thought that I didn't really want to have. So it was some kind of sexual thought, right? And I expressed it towards her, and she was actually laughing, so she thought it's funny. But I was extremely frightened because before like some people I communicated like sexual thoughts to, they react like extremely angry. Some even quit contact to me entirely. So that's for me like a major fear. Also, this fear of abandonment, which I think is also like a pretty basic thing to have, not only for nice guy, but probably for human beings in general, because you basically can die if you like excluded from society. So yeah. What do you think about this? Like communicating like sexual thoughts to other people, for example?
It depends.
Okay.
If I believe it to be in the best interest of our relationship, I'll probably do it. If I believe that this is somebody who is a potential willing and loving partner, I'll do it. On the other hand, I'm not going to tell my boss what a good, how much I lust after his daughter. um, so,
But
so
actually,
they're
the problem is that's actually what I did, because not exactly this, but I was in Paris and I did my master thesis there. And his wife was extremely attractive, I thought, and I masturbated like every night on her, and I couldn't stop. And I was like, oh my God, if she finds out, I'm dead. And the fear didn't go away. It grew and grew and grew. And at one point I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm going to tell her. So I sat down with her and told her that I fantasized about having sex with her. And the guy kicked me out next day. So like my university career was over at that point. But
right.
I have to say, in hindsight, I don't regret that I did it, because it was the truth. And it was like an extreme big fear of mine. And, afterwards I was like, all right, now I don't really mind what's going to happen to me, because I've lost so much that I don't care. But yeah, what do you think about that? Is this like more like of like narcissism? If you just go around and say like, okay, I fantasized about having sex with you, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's not, I wouldn't call it narcissism.
Okay.
But I might call it, uh, something like a lack of impulse control. In other words, let's say you're fantasizing about this woman and you're masturbating and you're obsessing about her. Um, um, you know that you could pay a very big price if you were to tell her, but you kind of went and did it anyway. My sense is that the impulse that drove you there might have been better off being thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were your therapist, I would say let's look into the obsession. And what we probably would have found is that there's a kind of an underlying rescue fantasy, a sexual rescue fantasy. So when we talk about the hero and the damsel and being trapped in the tower with the dragons, there's no shortcut to fighting the dragons. You don't get a magic sword that kills them all. And you don't get in life, you don't get a magic pill, or you don't get like the Beauty and the Beast magic solution, which is there's the beast, he's living all alone in his castle, but the beauty winds up there, and turns out she's a princess, and she finally falls in love with him and kisses him, and guess what? He's a handsome prince. Okay, it's a metaphor.
Sure.
Like, and we all believe we're handsome princes trapped in, these ugly, but we're frogs, we're toads, we're monsters, right? But if only a woman will love us, then we will be kind of airlifted out of our black hole from under the rock where we live, and suddenly we'll rise to a radiant golden cloud. And okay, so
yeah,
so
I know.
and that's where the obsessions come from.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of women who've said to me, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but this guy just proposed marriage on our first date."
What? Yeah, I heard you saying it in an interview, but I couldn't believe that. I mean, that seriously happened, that he proposed.
And that's where it comes from. He sits across from her, and he's a nice guy. He sits across from her. She's beautiful, and she's smart, and she's funny. And rather than like kind of taking his time and getting to know her, it's, that some switch gets flicked. She's the one, right?
Yeah.
She's the one, and she's going to kiss me, and I'm going to live happily ever after.
After like 10 minutes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I found myself more often than I can count in this position, but it certainly got better. Like now, when I know a woman, I won't be like after 5 minutes crazily in love with her. It might take like a date or so before I develop real like feelings for a girl I know, and afterwards I will be like, okay, she's really cool. I like her. I would like to continue like seeing her or whatever. But before that happened, like after 3 minutes, I was like, oh my God, she's so perfect. And the more you meet women, you go on dates, you're like, no, they're not perfect. Like some of them, you go on a date with, you're like, I don't want to see this person again. And
Right.
it's,
But
yeah,
even if she seems perfect, she isn't perfect.
yeah,
You know why? Because there are no perfect people.
sure.
There are no perfect people. There are only flawed human beings with problems and good things and bad things. And the one that seems perfect, maybe she's prettier than the others, or maybe she's smarter and funnier, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have problems. And it doesn't mean she's going to make your life, you won't live happily ever after. And also, I can guarantee that she may make your life better in a lot of ways, but she won't make it simpler.
Hmm.
It will only get more complicated when you add another human being.
Oh, sure. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I never had a real relationship except for when I was 13 or something. So I can't really tell how that develops. I had some dates and like a bit of sexual experiences now, but I never had like a person in my life that I continually like saw for a long time or like exclusively. But yeah, I mean, it's something I really look forward to maybe experience one day, to have this kind of commitment and trust you get from an intimate relationship too. But another thing I wanted to ask, because this is something that haunted my mind for a really long time, probably still is this that you said, I heard you in another interview saying that the nice guy thinks, the the women have like the secret key to happiness in their underpants, right? So they idolize sex. So they think, okay, if you have sex, then you will be like confident, and everybody's going to like you, and your stress will be relieved, and your life will be perfect for forever, which of course is bullshit. And I mean, I realized that because I killed a dry spell of like 4 years. And afterwards I was like, okay, well, it felt great. It was nice. She was really attractive. We had a great time. But I felt like good for one day. And I was like, okay, I want to do the same again, or like thought about other girls. So it doesn't really make you that satisfied for a long time. But why do you think that the nice guy has this tendency to think that sex is going to solve all his life problems? It's kind of like a drug, right?
Kind of, but the way I look at it, it is um, the nice guy sees sex as a manifestation of the woman's love that is undeniable. In other words, she can say anything she wants, and he may or may not believe her, but if she's willing to take off her underpants and have sex with him, then that proves that she loves him. It
Mm-hmm.
proves it undoes how he thinks about himself. So that's the kiss of the princess. If
All right.
she's willing to have sex with me, that she can't fake her willingness.
Mm-hmm.
And so the being willing to have sex proves that she cares about me,
Okay.
and it proves that I'm lovable.
All right, I see. But for me, it wasn't just it was probably also because of my internal codex that I always like put sex on a pedestal. But I felt like there's a lot of members, like in a male society, who put a lot of pressure on each other too. They're like, okay, you have to have sex now,
Hmm.
otherwise you're not worthy human being or whatever, or you I heard a lot of people saying, yeah, you have to have sex one time with, even if it's an ugly girl, and then you will be back to confident. I was like, no way. I'm not going to like fuck some ugly chick and that's going to make me confident. You're going to lose all of your self-respect. And I think that's quite sad, that you have like this social pressure thing in the male world going around too. So
I agree with you. I think that a lot of nice guys don't see themselves as very manly. And so by having sex, we prove to ourselves and to the wider male world, no, we really are men.
Yeah, because you put your dick into the feminine. How do you say that?
Into a vagina. Yes.
Into a vagina, exactly. All right. So the next question is, let's see. Okay, I heard you're talking about Dante's Inferno, and I thought it was quite interesting because Dante's Inferno is it's the journey to heaven, but you have to go through hell to get there, right?
Yes, sir.
So, and you said you really had to go to hell. And so what did you exactly mean by that?
So I would say that for years and years, I was depressed. Now, when I say that, what I mean is not that I was clinically depressed and I couldn't get out of bed. There's a difference between what psychologists call a depressive episode or clinical depression, which involves I can't get out of bed. I've lost interest in all pleasure. I can't function. Versus what was plaguing me and a lot of nice guys is what I might call an underlying depressive core or depressive core personality, in which there's always a sense of kind of an impending doom, a dark cloud that's always threatening to descend, And so whenever I would get rejected, it would come down on me. Or whenever I was hurt by somebody, or if I got fired from a job, or if it didn't work out with a particular woman, I would just, it would descend on me. And so I was in therapy, and I just kind of started talking about this as an experience that I didn't want to run away from. Because what was underlying it was this conviction that I was not good enough. I was fundamentally defective in some way that rendered me unlovable. And therefore, my future was bleak. And if people could see who I was, I'd be alone forever, right? So I had this idea, and of course, intellectually, I thought that can't be true. But emotionally, I thought, oh, yes, it is. Yeah. It's 100% true. That's the real truth, right? So I had these kind of two theories, and I'd spent my whole life saying no, 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 but really believing yes, 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 yes. So one day I just said, fuck it. I said, okay, look, I can't disprove it. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to accept that I am rotten, unlovable, and I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'm going to accept it as the truth about me, and I'm just going to tell the world. Okay. And then whatever they do to me, they do to me, because it's going to be better than the exhausting struggle of trying to fight it off, hide it, work against it, fool other people. I just said, fuck it. And what I predicted was A, I would be universally rejected, and two, kind of exiled. And I would wind up, I had this image in my mind. I was going to wind up in this cabin in the woods, growing vegetables, like rutabagas or whatever. And I was gonna like, and every once in a while, maybe somebody coming down the road would stop and have a cup of tea and then go. But mostly it was going to be just me all by myself for the rest of my life until I kind of fell over like Don Corleone in the tomato patch in The Godfather, right? So, and so that's what I did.
Okay.
And of course, I discovered that no, I'm not, I don't have to be in a cabin in the woods. No, nobody's getting rid of me. And interestingly, that everybody I talked to had a similar experience. Mm-hmm. I thought like I was the only one. I was like uniquely debased, uniquely monstrous. I was subhuman. Everybody else is human. I'm subhuman. If I'm the only subhuman one, then everybody else is above me. But it turns out that that wasn't the case. Everybody had this experience. And so I just started to I just stayed there, and I didn't try to get out. I tried to just stay in, explore the experience, and little by little it lifted until at this point I don't have it anymore.
I understand. Yeah, actually with this like subhuman thing, what you mean, I think that's like probably more of a like victim mentality kind of thing also, right? Which I think can be extremely dangerous too, because if you like, for example, look at the philosopher Nietzsche, right? He has all his like work is based on this like superhuman thing, for example, which the Nazis used later to kill millions of people. So when you're at the point you say, okay, I'm rotten and unworthy and subhuman on an individual level, you can also like reflect that on a group of people, and you can tell all of them you're subhuman and unworthy, and then it gets really dangerous. Cool. Yes, but this victim mentality is obviously, I think it's not only like for guys, but there's in general like a human problem too, right? That you think you're somehow special and you're suffering and everybody else is happy and having a great time, and you're the only one going to thrum some shit at the moment or have insecurities or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't exactly call it a victim, because I think that the victim mentality is slightly different. This is more of a sense of defeat, like lowered status. Like I'm not alpha, I'm beta, gamma, zeta. I'm the lowest on the totem pole. So it's not I'm not necessarily a victim. I'm just intrinsically low. Bad.
Yeah, but that's something interesting, because like not only humans, but a lot of social animals in general have status hierarchies, right? So you have like animals which have higher status than other ones. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but it's interesting because the nice guy, I would say they're probably even people of pretty high status in society, and they still have this thinking that they're unworthy and have no, how do you say that? That people around them don't love them or whatever for who they are. But I ask myself what it comes from, because it makes like rationally, it makes no sense. You're like you're at the top of the food chain, and you still think you're a piece of shit unworthy of love. Like, wow, how does this make sense? What do you think?
It makes sense because what you're seeing in adulthood is the residual effects of what happened in childhood. Okay. So this gets established in childhood when you are at the top of the food chain. In fact, you're born the bottom of the food chain. Yeah. And you have the one thing about humans is that they are powerless for years, right? I don't know many 1 and 2-year-olds who could take care of themselves.
Yeah, sure.
So we're 100% dependent on our parents. And there is no such thing as a perfect parent. There's always going to be misattunement between parents and children. And when there's misattunement, all children do the same thing. They blame themselves because the alternatives are terrible. Like they can't blame their parents. And besides, they're not sophisticated enough to know that mommy's depressed or daddy's an alcoholic, or that mommy and daddy aren't getting along, or the family has financial problems, or the whole society is collapsing. They can't figure this one out. It wouldn't occur to them, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that they know is that somebody's yelling at them, or somebody's neglected, or nobody's paying any attention to them. And so kids do what they do is sort of kind of a trial and error. It's like if I'm a rat in a maze and I take this turn, it leads to an electric shock. So I learn I take that turn and it leads to a food pellet. Okay, good. Same with kids. If I make a lot of noise, mommy screams at me. But if I'm quiet and well behaved, mommy pats me on the head and gives me food. Okay, now I know. So every time I make a lot of noise, there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
So little by little, the child tries to find the route to the food pellet, to the pat on the head, right?
Sure.
But if your mother and your father have a lot of unresolved emotional issues, there is no route to the food pellet. And what happens, there's done experiments where the maze for the rat leads to an electric shock no matter which path they take. And eventually what the rats do is they give up. They just sit and they don't do anything. And that's what children do too. They say there is no way to win. There's no way to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to get the love I'm looking for. And so I just give up and accept the fact that I'm subhuman. I don't belong here.
Yeah. So I see. All right.
And it happens around the age of 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that then gets carried on, and people they gather evidence. Oh, I've been picked last for the soccer team, or I got a F on my report card in spelling, or I made somebody angry, or now I feel ashamed of myself, and nobody wants to. I'm 14, but girls don't want to date me, or boys don't want to date me, or I'm fat, or I'm ugly, and like whatever. And it just, that's the evidence. See, and then
Right.
and then you turn 30, and you're the president of the company, and you're making $1 million a year, but it doesn't make any difference because inside you feel like a fraud, and you are convinced that you are a subhuman monster.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what do you think? How do you beat this sense of unworthiness? So my theory was just that you get out of it only by making yourself more vulnerable. So being honest and putting yourself in the situation where the things that you fear so much, like somebody rejecting you, or somebody making fun of you, or somebody shaming you, they all happen. And then you're like, well, all right, people. So now I don't care anymore. And you even see that some people will react with the same kind of vulnerability. So they will be, okay, you're making yourself that vulnerable, and I'm flawed too. And then you have this kind of human connection. But yeah, back to the original question. So what do you think? How do you beat this deep, like emotional belief that you are unworthy, which is a very powerful thing, right? So it can fuck up your whole life, basically.
So, to me, there are two ways that I call the high road and the low road.
Yeah.
And in order to understand the difference, you have to, what I think about this kind of belief that I'm subhuman, along with the belief that I could become superhuman if some woman kisses me, right? Or has sex with me, as mythic. This is mythic thinking. Mythic thinking is child logic. So this is a story that I, or whoever, created in childhood to explain why mommy isn't paying attention to me, or why daddy is screaming at me and hitting me, that there's something wrong with me. But it isn't true, and that I'm unlovable. But it isn't really true. It's a myth. It's a story that a child wrote because a child doesn't have a very sophisticated understanding of interpersonal emotional dynamics, particularly of his parents. So this is the best that I could do when I was 6 years old. But it's not the best I can do now. Now I can write a different story. And so the high road is I can shift from a mythic child logic story that I'm unlovable and defective to a human story, which is I'm not subhuman, but I'm never going to be superhuman. What I am is human. And human beings have strengths and weaknesses, limitations, capabilities, and emotions, thoughts, all kinds of weird. I'm capable of everything. Anything that's human, I'm capable of. Whether it's joy and happiness and generosity and kindness, or stupidity, ignorance, spite, malice, guilt, shame, whatever. I'm capable of everything, and I accept that about me. So the high road is if I can go, okay, you know what? I can accept that. I can shift from the mythic to the human. Now, when you try to do that, some people can do it, and some people can't do it. I couldn't do it in my own life. That's when I went to hell. I said, okay, I'm human, but it didn't work. I didn't believe it. Nope. Nope. My head said, no, you're not. No, you're a fucked up pile of dog shit.
Okay.
You are subhuman and unlovable. And so then I had to take the low road. The low road is you accept that you're a subhuman, unworthy pile of dog shit, and you go from there. And little by little, you kind of work through this, the dark way, and you go into hell, and then little by little, you will come out of it. But it's a longer, harder road. And so I don't recommend it necessarily. However, if you can't take the high road, you got to take the low road, because those are the only two roads I know of.
Okay, understand. All right. The next thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you think about, like, on a social level today, about the nice guy, or like in general, men who are not very assertive? Because we come from this, radical feminism stuff, and then we go to the 21st century, and now we're at the point where people say, okay, genders are invented by society. I mean, not only people, I think it's kind of like social, there's a huge part of society that actually believes that genders are not real. They're just invented by society, like to suppress, for example, the female gender or something like this. And I don't know. So I come from the background that I was also like, okay, women, they already have it so tough. You need to like somehow treat them specially. So because they're so weak creatures, and they can't withstand, like, if you assert yourself among them or something. And then I also had this feminist picture who said, okay, male are basically assholes, right? So any guy who disrespects a woman in some degree is like a rapist and toxic masculine and whatever. And I feel like this is kind of getting stronger today. There's this image that there's something wrong with like male assertiveness. So what was your experience with that, and how do you see that reflecting in your nice guy patients you consult?
The important distinction, it seems to me, is between assertiveness and aggressiveness. That males can be, in a lot of cultures, can be encouraged to be aggressive, and including aggression against women.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's never okay. It's also true that being passive and a nice guy is not a solution to the problem. Going the other way doesn't work either.
Mm-hmm.
So, bullying women or exploiting them or abusing them is never okay.
Sure.
But putting them on a pedestal and idolizing them and doing whatever you think is going to make them happy, to me, doesn't work either.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, from a human male perspective, I like to come to a woman with my desires, whatever they are, not just sexual. It could be, I want Chinese food tonight. and listen to her feelings and her desires. And on a one-to-one basis, I find that works really, really well. In terms of a wider society, I'm not educated enough or familiar enough with the ideas around gender as a construct. I can certainly say that gender roles are a social construct.
Okay.
There's nothing that says that a man has to go to work and a woman has to stay home and cook the food. That's a total social construct.
Okay.
But and that's also true to me with regard to something like a woman needs to behave in a certain way and a man needs to behave in a certain way. Those are also social constructs. And so I would question those constantly. I'm always willing to listen to, or I try my best to be open to how another person defines him or herself, and work with that.
All right. So I don't agree 100% with you, because I think, you have biological differences between man and woman, and these they will result ultimately in differences on a cultural level too. For example, in Scandinavia, you've given free choice to man and woman, so they could pick whatever they wanted basically for a career. And they actually had a very strong split. So a stronger split than in societies where you had more like cultural pressure with genders and stuff like that. So actually, if you give the genders free choices, they tend to behave differently. Like men go more to technical fields, for example, and women will more work into fields that are like nurturing, like nurses or things like that, for example, with very high numbers of women in that. And which I think is also interesting is that, for example, you on a social level as well, you have a very top on the hierarchy, you have men, but the very bottom too, right? So on the whole, like 75% of homeless people are males. So you don't only have them at the bottom, but you also have them at the top. You don't only have them at the top, but also at the bottom. And I think this is somehow also because of biological differences that men and women have. All right. So I think actually I've answered all my questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Paris. This is a very interesting conversation. I learned a lot from psychological perspective, I would say. And yeah, thanks so much for taking your time.
Arthur, thank you very much for having me on in the interview. I really enjoyed it. Those were great questions, and I hope that people out there get something from it.